Hey everybody, my name is Andrew Davis and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsor, Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. Printing your creative project can be confusing and stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. From their instant quote calculator that lets you get as many quotes as you want for free to their 24-hour customer service, Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And you can choose from a range of premium printing options and materials. And the company has also printed so many people's Kickstarters who have appeared on this show, and a bunch of them you have heard about, and everybody says amazing things about Mixum. And they offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK, and Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter, not harder, head over to Mixum.com, and right now they're running an amazing promotion for my listeners where you drop my name, Andrew Davis, to receive 5% off your order, your very first order. And I know that when you're running a Kickstarter, for everybody who's hearing this and obviously doing Kickstarter stuff, every percentage point matters. And so that is mixam.com. Type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab to get 5% off on your first order. And I have with me Arkluden, Cosplayer Arkluden. So welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I am very excited because obviously I browse Instagram and I look for people who sort of meet a certain criteria where they have less than 15,000 Instagram followers and are doing some really cool cosplays. And obviously you sort of fit that parameter. And obviously I am really curious how you got into cosplay because you are really talented. And I'm surprised you don't have more Instagram followers.
Well, thank you so much. It annoys me I don't have more either.
It's upsetting, I know.
Yeah, but it's how things go and it's totally okay. I try to do my own things to boost myself, but it's internet world, so it's kind of hard to make it. But I got into cosplay like through a bunch of friends in high school. I was in our anime club, and they mentioned to me like, oh, hey, this convention's coming up this weekend. Do you want to go? And I was like, oh, do I have to like cosplay for it? And never like being in like the pop culture like world, never going to a convention before. I was really nervous, but I had a blast there. Saw so many people in like cosplays. I threw together something like really quick. And I don't even want to count it as my first cosplay because it was just a button-up shirt is what it was. But after that, I just like went to like thrift stores and I would get like old outfits and I'd like make a cosplay out of it. And it would just be a yearly thing that our anime club and that our friends would do of just like, hey, this convention's coming up this weekend. Is everyone going to go? We should all like work on a cosplay together. So that's kind of how it started. And yeah, it's just evolved since then because I just love making stuff, and cosplay fit the bill of like, this stuff is cool. I really like looking at it and I can make it. So it's kind of how it started.
And so obviously we're going to talk about that. And I know you build a lot of props, but I am curious. Yeah. What was the first cosplay? And we don't have to count this makeshift one. We can count the legitimate ones.
This makeshift one, I don't even want to count. But my first like legitimate one, it was Death the Kid from Soul Eater, which is my favorite anime and manga that I have like all of them right here. I bought like a tuxedo suit from Goodwill and sewed on felt like white patches onto it to replicate his like patches he has on his suit. And I got a wig and I completely hacked up the wig, cut bangs straight across, made like super hard like spikes in the hair. Yeah, that was it. Like it was something I like made, but it got to start somewhere, and I like bought most of it. So yeah, that was my first one.
And you can talk about that because obviously cosplay is tricky at this point because there is somewhat a little bit of a divide, and we're going to dive a little controversial where some cosplayers, if you don't make it yourself, they don't view you as being a purist, and others are like, they don't really care. And then obviously people do a little bit of both. And obviously though, I view it, and I'm not a cosplayer, but I just view it from as an artistic standpoint that whatever is the cheapest and quickest way how to build something. And I go and hire out people to do things. You know, I didn't build my logo. I hired somebody to do that. But I do my research for my interviews because I can do that and I do it effectively. And so that's my take on it, where that sometimes it's just easier to buy certain components of it or even buy a whole cosplay and wear it. And so what was that like, though, even just sort of piecing together and then filling the gaps for the first round? Because that's also how you build up your skills as a cosplayer in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, I started out like by buying a few things. I never really bought like full cosplays. But I like certainly bought like little props or like the wigs and like with my Death the Kid cosplay, he has like rings that I didn't know how to make. So we bought like wings from like Wish, I think, or like eBay. But then after that, like I just started watching like tutorial videos on YouTube of like people making their own cosplays. And I just got really into that. And like seeing how things were made using different materials, stuff like that. And I mean, like through the years, I've still like bought things, but I'm mainly into the hobby for the making of it. And of course, anyone can cosplay without having to like make it 100% themselves. I just find it really enjoyable seeing the things that people physically make themselves, because that is the art form to me, and like seeing like the techniques that people use, if they work with like foam or if they sew or if they like just like paint with an airbrush. It's those kind of things that are like really interesting to me and that like make me want to cosplay.
And so I'm very visual, and I
Yeah.
people bring things to life, and I appreciate the idea of how work goes into things. You know, obviously I play with a lot of Legos and I do a lot of Lego designing digitally.
Me too. God. Yeah, that's where my maker brain came from, was Legos.
And so I'm super big into that, and building, and mosaic work is sort of my niche in a lot of ways. And I go deep. I go deep in big like 20,000 piece mosaics digitally built. Yes. There's a problem when you're digitally building big things. I need help, everybody, clearly. But it's the idea that obviously I am super curious about your building process and even where you get an idea and how that all comes about, because you've done a bunch of cosplays and we're going to talk about a bunch of them in a second here. But where do you even formulate an idea that says, hey, I want to do this cosplay, and the inspiration and all that starting? Because obviously we're talking about your Zelda and Pokemon and a few others, I promise. I don't want to spoil it, but the graphic I design might give away some stuff.
Yeah, just maybe one thing.
Hey, we need the shock value.
Yeah. I mean, I get my inspiration from just like the games I play or the anime that I watch. I play a lot of like online multiplayer games with my friends, or even just like smaller like RPGs by myself. If I see something that's cool, it's usually something that lights up, because that's kind of my niche. I just like can't stop looking at it, and I can't stop thinking about it, and then it suddenly I made it. Those are things that like make me really want to like make a cosplay, is like having that like, usually if it's a character, I'll have a connection to that character. Or if it's a character from a video game, I make sure I get good at playing that character in a video game, so I feel like I'm doing the character justice when I am cosplaying them. Obviously, you don't have to do that. I'm just crazy that way. But I usually just see something like cool, and then I'm like, I'm going for it. I gotta make that thing.
And then even going further into this, because one of the things, and we were sort of alluding to it before, is that, and anybody who's cosplayed, and I briefly cosplayed, I spent about like $150 off of an outfit off of eBay. And then I realized quickly cosplay is not for me. I am more of a fan than a cosplayer. But the idea is that cosplay can be very expensive, and it can be very challenging. You know, obviously expensive, finding materials can be very difficult. You're in the U.S., so in the U.S. we haven't had a big problem, but places in Australia, and people I've spoken to in Australia, people in the Philippines, you know, people up in Canada, obviously people in the UK I've spoken to have had issues with supplies and also getting around certain materials, because certain materials are very difficult to work with as well.
definitely.
And so how do you balance all of that? And also certain things are not available. Certain people, I think, are on backlay with certain materials and certain props
Mhm.
and all that stuff. And how do you figure out how to balance all that? Because it can be expensive, it can be cheap, and it can be everything.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I do have resources here in the US. They've definitely popped up more in the recent years, like foam providers or like good like paint brands and actual like physical stores partnering with these brands to sell their stuff in stores. Like Michaels now sells like EVA foam and Warbler in their store, which is something that 3-4 years ago I couldn't find anywhere. Or even Joanne's partners with like Yaya Han to have her own fabric line and foam in their stores. So those are things that once they popped up and it was more readily available, I just jumped on it because they were made fairly cheap and they were here. Like local. Like I could just like run to a Michael's or Joanne's and just like pick up the one last thing that I need before a convention to like finish a cosplay. Other than that, I would order online from like a cosplay like foam provider, and great quality foam and like great product. But of course, like the shipping times and stuff like that. So having things more readily available has definitely helped in the budget and in making things like quickly. So yeah.
It also helps that it's become a lot more mainstream.
Definitely, yeah.
Because when something's mainstream, it's more available. Also, just natural supply and demand. If more people are interested in a product, and if 500 people want, EVA foam, and Michaels then orders it, and then it's actually being produced in bigger quantities, it becomes cheaper and it becomes also more accessible, and a variety of other things. So obviously, that's something that has changed dramatically. And then also you've been talking about other things because obviously you build props, and we're going to get into that in a little bit later. There's a particular prop I want to talk about. And I don't know if you know which prop, but we're not going to ruin it. So one of my favorite animes. And so obviously what is that like? This prop building is very different than picking up fabric. Warbler, wood is a big thing, EVA foam, making sure that a sword, if you're using foam, it is sturdy enough and all that stuff. And it's also just different completely tools and everything. And so how do you figure out those, things and materials for that? Because what you'll use for a prop is not what you use for a cosplay sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I would say my strengths are definitely in foam work, but that's mainly from working with it a lot and from seeing a bunch of like tutorials from people when I first started cosplay. And like a lot of my like prop work has come from the knowledge that I've picked up over the years and from watching all these tutorials and all these makers make things like on YouTube. And I definitely like go out. Let's see. I definitely put more thought into a prop than like a shirt I have to make, because the prop is more of the centerpiece to me of like something I want to show off, because that's something I will easily just like put on my wall and look at forever, instead of a costume that I'll just put in a bin and then not like really see. So like with choosing like the materials that you want to use for that kind of stuff, it came with like all the knowledge from watching the tutorials, but then also from like the experience of me using them. I originally started out by using this like pink insulation foam you can get from like Home Depot. And it's a foam that you can like glue together and carve down in sand, and it makes like really lightweight props. But I've made like 2 or 3 props out of it, and I've brought them to conventions and they've like just shattered because I had like I won a cosplay contest with one of the props. It was a bow from Breath of the Wild, and it was made out of this insulation foam. And I set it on the ground when I was like going to get like my trophy, and someone stepped on it and it like just broke it in half. I wasn't upset at all. It was like, okay, well, I won, so it's fine. But it was also like, oh, so maybe I shouldn't use that kind of material for something like this, or maybe I need to be more careful with it. So I've definitely moved over into more spongy like foam that can take a beating and can be like flexed and like pulled and stuffed into a bin for travel if I need it to.
To even talk about that, because
Yeah.
obviously there's a few things going on. So,
Yes.
finding the material cost matters tremendously. Also, materials that are able to work with matter too. And then there's also things where it's the idea that the prop, you got to carry it for a while at the very least.
Definitely.
Now, I mean, if you're doing a cosplay contest and that's on Friday night, you might not walk around with that prop till Saturday just to protect it. But even still, you have to travel. You are going to have to carry it. It has to take somewhat of a beating. It also has to be con approved. And that's another thing too. That's a big deal. And well, you still, if I didn't already say it, even on that Saturday, or even if you're not using that for a contest and you just say, hey, I just want to go to a con for the sake of going to a con, if you have a 50-pound prop, I mean, that thing's going to be a bitch to carry in a lot of ways.
Definitely.
And so, like, that also has to be taken into effect when you're doing all this and making sure that it also has to, as you say, take a beating. And so it's very tricky prop building.
Definitely. I've in my most recent props that I make, I actually make them able to separate in some way so they are easier to travel with. And it's been like a lifesaver. In 2019 was the first year I actually like flew out of state to attend a convention, and I brought a few cosplays that I obviously couldn't travel with a few things with because I made them before knowing it was going to go in a suitcase. But then after I figured out, oh, I want to travel with this thing, everything's either like Velcroed together or magnets, or like some of the staffs that I make, they have PVC pipe like connectors on the inside of it. So you can just like twist it apart and pull it apart. And it definitely helps make the thing more lightweight if you want to carry it around all day, because you could just separate them, have someone else carry the other piece of it. And the travel, because you don't want to travel with a 7-foot tall spear, because sometimes they won't fit indoors. And it just makes it a lot easier, especially for storage as well after the fact, because I can easily just break this thing apart and put it in a corner and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, and I'm not a prop builder. I am not a cosplayer. I just know that building props is beyond complicated. And I know that certain things make it easier. And I'm sure we're going to get into some of this stuff, but I do want to dive into some of your cosplays. We're going to take a hard right here. And since we're on Breath of the Wild and Legend of Zelda, obviously you did Blue Link first, as I call Blue Link.
From Breath of the Wild.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
I'm a Minish Tunic. Gotcha. Oh, gotcha. I gotcha.
So how did this one come up? Because obviously you do regular, no armor, and obviously you got the gauntlets, you got, the, I guess, shin guards and knee guards and his boots, and also the wig and a variety of other stuff's involved in this. So how did this come about, and what was this one? Because obviously, for those who are going to go check this out later, it's a very intricate link, and then there's also a bunch of really cool photos out actually in what I think is Colorado.
Yes. I think I know which one you're talking about. The one with the gray armor, legs, and just the blue tunic up top and the hood.
I didn't know what that was called.
I got you. That is the Link from Breath of the Wild in the outfit that I always ran around in the game. So I always kept the champion tunic on because I loved seeing enemies like health bars, because that's what allowed you to see it. The hood I just loved and thought it was so cool, and I had the soldier's greaves for the armor on the legs, which I dyed black in the game, so they're a little bit darker in the actual cosplay itself. But I came around that one because I think I made that one in 2017. That's the one where I actually won my first cosplay contest in. It was that bow that's in that photo is the one that snapped. Breath of the Wild came out in 2017 in like March. Fell in love with the game. I've always loved Zelda, and that's just what I wore in the game. And and I actually made more than half of that cosplay prior to that cosplay photo shoot, because in February, I think like a few days before the game actually got released and the Switch got released, a friend of mine and we made Link and Zelda cosplays from Breath of the Wild just based off the trailers and like screenshots. So that's why I made the tunic off of, and the Sheikah slate that I made one for both of us. And that was a lot of fun to do. It was kind of stressful, like not knowing exactly what it was going to look like. But then after that, I just fell in love with the game and just wanted to start making like everything from it. So I started with what I loved the most in the game, which was just the outfit that I wore. And I already had half of it, so that kind of worked out.
And then going further, obviously Link has some serious armor.
Yes.
and there's an entire armor build of Link, and you did that. And so what was that? And what's the story behind that? Because building a full piece of armor, obviously this is something that is not, traditional Zelda, I would like to say, I think is a safe assumption. I mean, it's in the game and everything, so it's not like you took a step out of what Nintendo was doing. I want to make that clear. But this is a very intricate project, to say the least. And so what's the story behind how this was built and even building armor? Because I'm assuming this was your first time building armor, unless I'm wrong.
Well, my first time building armor were those greaves that I wore in that.
A full set. I'll correct myself.
Yes.
A full set.
Well, my first time working with like EVA foam to make armor were those greaves, and then I immediately jumped into that armor. So that was my first time making a full set of armor. Depending on which photo you're talking about, I originally made that. It's called the Ancient Armor from Breath of the Wild. I made that set in 2018 originally, hoping to compete in it for the cosplay contest again at the same convention the next year. I had not cosplayed in about a year at that point. I took like a year like break, and I immediately was like, oh, this convention's coming up. I want to make this. I busted my ass and made this thing in a month. Put it in the cosplay contest, and I didn't win anything. And looking back on it, I realized why I didn't, because the whole armor lights up itself, and I decided to use very cheap fairy lights inside the armor to make it light up. And I had ideas to have a complete, like another prop and another thing that like lights up and do all these different things I just didn't have time for. So the next year in 2019, I actually completely remade it. I was able to like keep a few parts, but there's a lot of parts I completely remade, but I ripped out all those lights and put in actual like 12-volt LED strips throughout the whole armor, and sewed a brand new like bodysuit, and even put on like smaller details that you can only see in the game that like no one would notice, that he has like little bit like dyed darker sides and like gloves on the bodysuit than you would even notice like when you look at it. And it was like just a detail I really liked. But when I remade the armor, I learned from what I did the last time, and I actually ended up winning. So that was just a great experience, and it felt amazing. And the prop that I was originally making for that competition in 2018 that I did not win, I actually finished, and I also finished the accompanying like arrow that goes along with it, because I made the ancient arrow and the ancient bow to go along with the ancient armor. And the ancient arrow is like a prop that I'm crazy proud of, because I actually made it open and close, and it was my very first time working with animated LEDs and coding. But that was something I originally wanted for the first cosplay contest that I won with just the normal bow and my like Breath of the Wild outfit. But I couldn't finish it. So that arrow itself took me about like 2 years to finish, to figure out the coding, because it was coding to have lights turn on, open a servo, and then turn more lights on, and then close back up. Which, jumping into coding at the very beginning, I had no idea how to do. So that was a process to make. But I'm so glad that like turned out. Also with that armor, because that's still like one of my favorite pieces I've worn. Yeah.
And there's a lot going on with it. And then
Yeah.
also, obviously it's a very intense piece, and building armor is an art of itself. And, obviously whether you're doing EVA foam or, Warbler or anything else like that, obviously it's a whole thing. And I know stories, and I know how people get frustrated with it, and people give up on it. And also one of the things and I'm curious because this seems wearable versus something that is not wearable, and I'm sure you've seen it, I've seen it, where people cannot sit down at a convention. And
That's me. I cannot sit down in that.
What?
I can't sit down in that armor.
I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know, and we're going to talk about cons in a little bit later, but it's the idea that there's been a change with cosplay, where cosplay has gone from being very traditional to now being a little bit more relaxed. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously been a lot more mashups, and there's been a lot of other things that have happened. And also the idea of comfort, I think, has come in recent years more so than anything else. And obviously that's happened. And it's a very interesting, I guess, progression of cosplay.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Super interesting what's going on with that. And then also you have a few other things that happen. I mean, the Hyrule shields, obviously the circle shield, I think you have a regular shield, mm-hmm. and building both of those things is pretty intense.
Yeah. That Hylian shield is cardboard. That was like one of the first props I ever made, and I used like cheap craft foam from like the kids section in Michael's, not even knowing what like EVA foam was. And that was for my like first Link cosplay, and I did Twilight Princess Link because that's one of my favorite Zelda games. And I don't have a lot of photos of that one because that was before I started like taking photos and posting stuff. But that was like one of my first things. And of course that was the one post on my Instagram that completely blew up for some reason, was the Hylian shield compared to my Traveler's shield that I made. Other than anything else, but whatever. That Traveler's shield was like one of the first things I made that I actually recorded the process of making and actually posted it to YouTube. So being inspired by the people that I watched on making things, I took their tips and I took the things that I learned and put it into my own video. So I was really proud of that build.
And then even going further into Legend of Zelda, obviously you have Snowquill Link as well as Barbarian Link.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And why Barbarian Link? I get Snowquill.
Yeah.
I completely understand that one. But I'm so curious about Barbarian because it's definitely not norm.
Oh, definitely not. That was in 2019 where that was going to be the first year I actually traveled out of state to go to a con with my friends. And the convention we're going to was Anime Expo in Los Angeles. That con is known for being a con that doesn't have a whole lot of rules compared to like how much you have on your body. So that costume came around of like, well, it's going to be really hot and I want people to take pictures of me. Why not be like half naked? So it's like a design that I liked. And I made a Bokoblin arm that actually like the fingers actually like wiggle when you like move it around. Because that was one of my like favorite weapons from the game. I like have videos saved on my phone of when I was like just looking at the Bokoblin arm just like moving while you're holding it, or like when it's like sheathed on your back and it's just like moving, and it's like so gross, but I'm like, that's so cool, and it's just like a gag prop. But someone I'm mutuals with on Instagram actually started making that cosplay for Barbarian Link around like the same time I was thinking about doing it, and he made like the helmet already. I was like, that's so cool, I want to start making it. So we basically just like started making it at the same time, and it turned out I think I've worn it maybe like once or twice, to that
So
convention.
to even talk about that, because one of the things, and we were alluding to it, and we're going to get right into one of my favorite animes and a prop you built to some degree, but I think this is so relevant, is that cons are complicated with rules, what can be done at cons.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm more in the panel side, and obviously I tend to do under 18 panels. So anybody, my panels really are rated for 13 and up. But cons are tricky with rules, what is allowed, what isn't allowed, what people can get away with. Hate to say this, and it's going to sound a little bit, I guess, politically incorrect, but women can get away with more than men in a lot of ways. And also rules sometimes get broken. Sometimes rules are enforced or not enforced, prop rules. And so what is that like, figuring out all those rules? Because it is tricky, and some cons make it obvious, some cons don't. And knowing what cons want what, especially because certain cons are more family friendly than others.
Definitely.
Obviously, there's a con called Katori Con on the East Coast. It's a very family friendly convention, but then you go to a place like Anime USA, it's a little less family friendly to some degree. But then you go to like a place like Awesome Con, that's definitely more corporate, for lack of a better word. New York Comic Con is more corporate. In a lot of ways. So what is that like for you, figuring out what's acceptable, what's not at cons?
Well, I've had like a few issues in the past with me bringing bows to conventions.
That's a big one. Usually the string,
the
right?
string cannot be attached. The bow I made for the brown like traveler's bow I made for Link, that's made out of that like insulation foam. That actually has an elastic cord for the string, so I'm able to pull it back and it doesn't like stretch the insulation foam because it can't like bend. So I wanted to give the illusion I could still pull the string. I never got it prop checked, but then I used it in the cosplay contest, and it was after the cosplay contest someone asked, "Do you have that thing prop checked?" And I was like, "Oh, they said I was like, yeah, I have it prop checked. I just took the thing off for the costume contest." And they're like, "Oh, okay, as long as it was approved." I've definitely gone away with things I shouldn't have been able to, but I'm not like hurting anyone with it. My ancient bow itself, the string itself is a EL wire, so it lights up. And I was taking a photo once after the competition, and I just like was like pulling the string, and someone came up to me in the middle of like this photo, and they're like, "I'm gonna like cut that thing if you don't take it off." And I'm like, "You better not cut this thing, because this is like a $20 like electronic wire." But I made it so you can detach it and roll it up and everything. There's definitely been times that I've seen people get away with things, like conventions here, at least. We have a very friendly family convention here in Colorado called Nandasukan, and they have like a cosplay rule of like 60% of your torso has to be covered, and on males and females. So there's like issues with that if you want to cosplay a specific character. But then there's also like, you can't have like big wings or like big tails that like block traffic, which they're rules that make sense, which I completely understand. But it does make it frustrating when wanting to cosplay a character, specifically because I like to compete. I would like to walk around in the thing I'm competing in, but sometimes they might not allow it because it's either just so big or because it has elements of it that they just don't allow.
It goes even further, because what happens, and I'm going to give insight for every cosplayer out there. There's a big issue with comic people and comic artists at these cons and cosplayers, because what happens a lot is that a cosplayer will go in front of somebody's booth, and then 50 people are taking photos, and the comic person doesn't have a problem with them at their booth or in front of their booth, but they're blocking somebody getting something signed. And if you just paid $500 for a table and you're trying to sell your book, it gets complicated. And that's why at certain cons, what they've now done is that they say no photos in the dealer's room. And it makes 100% sense in a lot of ways. And obviously, a bunch of people have spoken about this on my show. And what they usually do with a cosplayer is say, "Hey, do you mind just moving over about 10 feet over in this open space?" And most people will say, yeah, no problem. But it's become a big issue, and it's also very complicated, very heated discussion, because right now a lot of comic people are saying, look, I don't know what cons I want to go to anymore because it's so cosplay heavy, and that a lot of people are there for cosplay, and that's great, but if you're trying to make a living or break even, it gets so complicated.
Definitely.
And there's a lot of stuff going on, and that's not saying that anybody's doing anything wrong, but obviously the marketplace has determined what the event should be and what should happen. So it's very interesting with what's going on with cons, and there's a lot of politics going on with it. And I'm obviously a panelist, and I'm a fan panelist at this point, or I was until COVID hit and me taking a long break from it. But it's the idea that there's a lot of stuff going on, and cons are tricky. They are beyond tricky to navigate. So obviously, I don't want to press too much into controversy here. But talking about props, because you have done an Adam from RWBY. And
that's the anime you were talking about. Okay, yeah. As you could see, I love RWBY with my figurines. The Adam prop. It's not that complicated, actually. It's like a sword inside like a sheath.
That's not the prop. That's interesting. It's Salem Seer. That is fascinating.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Because that prop is a fascinating prop. So, but what before we get to there, what prompted Adam? Because you have the mask.
Oh God.
Obviously, Adam doesn't seem that complicated compared to the Armored Link. I don't know if it is.
No.
And I could be misspeaking. And then also you have the tattoo with the dust on his face, which is a really nice touch.
Yeah. So I loved RWBY when it came out, and I still like it. And in I think it was like 2012 when the like black, or 2013 when the black trailer dropped with Adam in it, I was like immediately like, that's a cool person. I want to cosplay that person. It wasn't until I think they were mid-season 2 of RWBY that I finally cosplayed him, and he still hadn't made his like appearance in the anime yet. So I just made it off of the like the black trailer that he was in, and the mask wasn't super complicated. It was actually a children's like masquerade mask that I then covered with a very thin sheet of like foam, and I cut the little like eye slits in and then just like painted on the details. And I sewed that coat from scratch and like put the like flower detail on the back of it, and the sword itself was like one of my first props I made, and it's still like it holds up, but it's definitely not one of my favorites now. But I definitely use techniques on it that I just don't use anymore because they're too complicated. But like I could definitely make that thing a lot easier and make it look a lot better now with the things that I've learned. But I made that thing in maybe like 2015, so a good 6 years ago. The seer prop, that was made for my friend who cosplayed Salem. We traveled, it was in 2019, the year that we traveled for conventions. We went to Fanime in San Jose, California, and she was competing in the cosplay contest there. She wanted to do Salem, and she like made the wig and everything and the whole like cloak, and I was like, okay, I'll make you your prop if you like pay for my ticket for the convention, or like cover like the hotel room or like something like that. The prop itself was just there's like 6-inch like clear ornaments that are like the half ornaments that you can get. I think I got it off like Amazon or something, and I put lights on the inside of it. I dyed it black with like RIT dye and like a boiling pot of water, so you could like still see through it. And I put like orange LEDs on the inside, and the rest of it is foam clay. It's like a newer product that cosplayers use.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I'm lost on this one. So
it's basically clay that after like maybe like 3 or 5 days, when it's like completely cured, it feels and acts like EVA foam. It does harden like a lot more after like a certain amount of time. But I made the teeth and all the like gooey bits all over the seer with that, and then I had cosplay foam like dowels. So just like dowel rods that are EVA foam that I inserted wires on the inside of, and then closed it up over it, and we were able to like pose the tentacles.
And it's a really cool prop.
Thank you.
It's just trippy. And it's also, that prop is a little bit hard to some degree because Salem obviously does a lot of movement. It's not a sword per se.
Definitely.
So to do what you want to do with that, obviously it gets tricky and all that stuff. And so it's a really cool prop. And that's why I wanted to talk about it because I really enjoy Ruby. I thoroughly enjoy Ruby. I think Ruby is one of the best American animes to come out in a while. I think Genlock is pretty good. I don't think you can hold a candle to Korra or Avatar.
Oh yeah,
that's like a quintessential American anime. That's the standard, and that's the gold standard in so many ways. But Ruby's a close second. It's a close second. So, and
I just love the like weapon designs in Ruby. I love watching things like move, like mechanical stuff, and trying to figure out how it works. Ruby is what actually got me into like 3D modeling and animation. Which I went to school for a little bit, but that didn't really work out. But I do. That's how I learned all my like 3D modeling stuff that I use with like my 3D printing and brought it into like cosplay and everything like that. So,
no, I just thought Ruby was brilliant, and I thought Ruby was really, really well done, and I understood what they were doing with it. I knew who Monty Ohm was before he was a Haloid.
Me too.
Haloid is a fascinating entity. And just everything that guy has done is amazing. So obviously, and Ruby's complicated now though, in which that I think it should have ended at season 5. And the reason why I say that is because I think that their world has gotten way too big in too many ways, and I think it's out of control. And
definitely.
And I think Rooster Teeth needs to rein it in, especially the way the last season ended. And I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but like, what are they going to do next?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still going to watch it. I still like thoroughly enjoy it. I love like the music in it and the fight scenes, stuff like that. The world has definitely got out of hand, but I'm like ride or die right now. I'm going to stick with it to the end.
Yeah, also, Ruby was good for the first 4 seasons, and then season 5 was filler.
Season 5 was filler. Season 3, absolutely my favorite. Hands down, favorite season. Everything since then, it's been but
and the problem is that I feel like they're neglecting Genlock.
They only did like 1 season of Genlock, right?
So Genlock should have more. And there should be more stuff coming out with Genlock. And it's getting complicated because I don't know what they're going to be doing with Genlock. And Genlock is so interesting. But Genlock is predictable to the T. I mean, there's no – I know the exact ending and how they're going to play out Genlock to the T. But that's neither here nor there. And then also what's really cool about Ruby, I don't know if you've seen them. Have you seen the DC comic covers of Ruby?
Yes. I just saw they were coming out with that, which is – really cool. Like
so
to think
out with 1 set already. And that set is awesome because you have Art Gem, who's a top, artist. Who's an expensive artist who did a bunch of them. And then they never released cover 7, which is annoying. On the first set. And then now they're doing the Justice League, which is I think ending next month. And those are just really cool when you have like Ruby and the Flash and Wonder Woman and Green Lantern. And you have but I don't know what they're doing for the last 3 covers of that because there's only 4 main characters, and then I don't know what they're going to be doing. But you had some of the best DC artists on the first thing. You had Jim Lee doing a cover, Art Gem did a bunch of stuff, and a bunch of other people. Really cool materials, and those books aren't even that expensive, but they're going to be.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. I'm not as huge into like DC comics, but I saw those covers and they look really sick. So
they are amazing, and it's the idea that I have a whole set, and my goal is to get each one of those things signed and graded.
Nice, that'd be awesome.
But I'm right now poor. I'm cash poor. I'm not poor. I'm cash poor because all my money is going into this project right now.
I gotcha.
And it's going into something coming out that some people know about it, some people don't. But I digress right there. And I do want to talk about one more thing before we get into the fun two things that we're going to talk about, just Pokemon and League of Legends. But we do need to talk about Overwatch.
Okay.
And you do Ash. And
Yes.
obviously Ash carries a big fucking rifle.
Yeah. God, Overwatch. I played Overwatch when it came out in 2016 and been wanting to cosplay a character from it. I don't know why the first one I was cosplaying was the one that like just came out like a year before I started cosplaying it. I originally wanted to do a bunch of different characters, but for some reason Ash just like stuck with me. And of course it's because I got good with Ash in the game, so it's like, oh, I guess I have to make the cosplay now. I really wanted to cosplay like McCree or Lucio, but I never got good at McCree, and Lucio would just be really hard to cosplay. Especially like the ribbit skin that I wanted to do with Lucio. But I digress. The Ash gun, fully 3D printed. Definitely one of my favorite props, and one of the props I spent the most time on, because it's like 20 different pieces, I think, maybe 24 different pieces, all like put together with a PVC pipe down the center to keep everything aligned. I spent the most time filling in all the lines from the 3D print and from the separate pieces, sanding it down super smooth. And I actually, this wasn't in the original model that I bought to 3D print it, but I added in a little jig on the like middle of it so I could separate it. There's a separate PVC pipe, and there's magnets and some like washers that keep it together. So that was definitely like one of my favorite projects I did with like.
So let's talk about 3D
printing.
printing, because I know nothing about 3D printing. There is something I want to 3D print.
Okay.
It's Hunk's gun from Resident Evil. I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, and I love his triple tap gun. It's a P9.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
Awesome weapon, and I'm going to be building a studio in the next probably 18 months, and I want to put a bunch of cool props up on my studio weapons, and that's something that I want on there. And so I don't know how 3D printing exactly. I mean, I know how it basically works, but what is that entire process of designing something and printing it out and buying a model and then getting the plastics? And then, having it, printed, because some plastics I would imagine are cheaper than other plastics, and also some colors might be cheaper because I know you can 3D print, and even just figuring out, and also the fact that it's 20 pieces, and obviously 3D printers can be huge, they can be small. You could have cement 3D printing. I know that. You have cookie 3D printing. In China uses cement 3D printers.
I think it's really cool. Yeah.
It's sick. It's awesome. But again, know nothing about 3D printing, so how'd you get into that? I'm always out like even getting one, and then all the model stuff and all that stuff. Because I'm super curious, and I would imagine other people are as well. The basic version of it. Okay.
The modeling aspect came from me wanting to do more like 3D artwork and animation. So I learned like basic 3D modeling program called Blender, and that's what I do all my modeling in. After that, I realized that 3D printers were becoming a lot like cheaper. And I was like, it'd be really cool if I could print my own like figurine of a character that I designed. That would be cool. So that's like kind of what I set out to do. For like my senior project in high school, I did my project and like my thesis on how like to do like 3D printing, like the whole process of it. So I went through the process of making my own like character that I designed from scratch, putting them into the 3D software. And there was a 3D printer at my school that like one of the science teachers had, and they barely knew how to work it, but we tried to figure it out together. And I printed out my little character that I designed. So that was something really cool. And then when I realized that printers were becoming a lot cheaper and seeing the application you can use with them in cosplay, I realized that, I really want to get one of these. So I bought like a cheap $150 printer. That was like a kit that you have to put together. It has exposed wires, and it's not the safest thing, but it definitely like got me through some things and like definitely did a lot of prints before it eventually died.
And so when you're building out a gun or you're 3D printing something, in particular with ashes, was that a 3D printing thing that you designed the gun, or did you purchase that? Because that's where it gets tricky with 3D printing, because you could do both, I think. And obviously, if you're doing something very simple, it makes sense. But obviously, Ash's gun is a little bit complicated. So how did that all work? Because at a certain point, I would imagine you reach something where it doesn't make any sense for you to design it if it's already done for you. It's just a matter of you're printing it, which saves you money, or it saves you time of shipping, or whatever it does, or you have more control on how to solve something, even if it's not cost effective. So what's the story behind the gun? Because that's where I get confused, is that because I see a bunch of stuff on both sides, where I see people designing props and on 3D printing, and I see people also buying a bunch of stuff.
The gun I purchased, the file for it I purchased. I did edit some of the pieces so I could make it come apart. And with that, I just basically took the files that I purchased, put it in my 3D program, and just extruded some things and made some pieces to that could attach to it. I have made a few props that are fully 3D printed and modeled by myself. The process of it isn't as difficult as you would think, but it does take knowledge of the program that you're using. And also with 3D printing as well, because you can print things with different thresholds for how things will fit together, or for how strong a certain piece is if it's printed in a certain way. So there's definitely challenges that come with it, but I think it's definitely a tool that's worth it for a lot of people to have if you like making stuff, and it's a whole hobby of people just 3D printing. So it's just another aspect of this hobby that I have.
And it's very interesting, even going beyond that, because obviously, you modify the gun, and you also have, the hat, you have her vest or his vest. I'm not too sure how you identify that.
I just did a gender bent Ash, but I also, in doing it, it's this characters can be really androgynous, so I don't really care.
Obviously, Bob.
The Bob head. Oh, that was great.
and even just the fact that Overwatch was super big at that time, and obviously I've sort of grown out of Overwatch.
Me too.
To some degree. I think people come in and out of Overwatch. I have no desire for Overwatch 2. I think I'm past it, but I played Overwatch for 4 years, and I loved every second of it. But you get to a point where the game gets stale. But I thoroughly enjoy a bunch of those characters, and I think it's a big win for Activision. Definitely. But even still, what was that like designing the rest of that? Because it's not just the gun.
Yeah.
That is essentially, obviously having those details and having the logo in the back of the vest and having the right hat and also having the suit and having all that stuff, because that helps tremendously, because a gun can only go so far. A prop can only go so far in cosplay.
Definitely. The vest and the little tailcoat, I made those from scratch. When I originally first started getting into sewing, I didn't really know how to make patterns for myself, and I never bought patterns to follow because I didn't really understand them. So I basically just took a t-shirt that fit me in the right ways, and I just traced that out onto fabric, and then I just started sewing things together. The vest was a difficult thing to make because she has that sideways zipper that goes up. So trying to figure out the openings for it and for things to lay on top of each other, that was something I had difficulties with. But I think it turned out fine with the final product. And also those boots and the chaps that she has. I have little ankle boots that I just use in my daily life. And I was well, I don't have knee-high boots. And I was making this at the start of COVID. So I couldn't really go out to get stuff. So I basically just covered these ankle boots and traced around my entire leg to make this chap and this knee-high boot. And I cannot bend my knees in them because they are attached from my foot all the way up to my hips. So
you know how I walk.
Yeah, so that was definitely a very interesting project. The hat for Ash and then the bob head, those were actually patterns that I purchased from someone on Etsy for to make specifically out of foam. So having those
I've sold a pattern once at a cosplay magazine because I'm not a cosplayer. And I don't understand any of that. I don't get what buying a pattern means. But the person was thrilled that I'm like, hey, I'm glad I could help you. I'm thrilled that I got my magazine.
Yeah.
I wanted this for $9. The magazine was like $11. I got ahead to some degree because I got all the knowledge I wanted because I'm obviously a fan of cosplay, and it was great. But like, I don't understand full patterns. I don't understand what people use it for. Again, though, you know. I like to make my life simple where if I don't know how to do something, I'm either going to go hire somebody or find somebody to do it because I want to focus on what I'm good at. And that's what I do, and it works, and it's helpful, and it's great. Like, I'm bad at 90% of what I do. 90%, and that's why I don't do 90% of it.
Yeah, I understand.
If it makes any sense. Which that statement did not make any sense whatsoever. But I think people got where I was going with it.
Yes.
But no. That's. I guess patterns are useful.
In sewing, I don't know what I'm doing with it. Those like pre-made patterns that you can get at like Joann's for like certain like outfits, I don't know how to read it. It doesn't make any sense to me. If you give me a foam pattern for a prop, I'm like, thank you. I know how to make this now because it's just basic shapes, and then you just cut things out. It's a lot simpler with foam, I feel. Because a fabric pattern, you have to make it fit around your dimensions. And body dimensions are always different versus if, hey, this prop is this length and this like height, here you go. That's it.
Yeah. And also it's easier to modify a prop.
Definitely.
If you have somebody who's 7 feet and you want the prop to be proportional, you're going to need to modify it because if the sword is legitimately like Link's sword and it's 2 feet long, or if it's 36 centimeters, you might have to expand. But it's easier to modify a non-wearable item.
Definitely.
Versus wearable items, because wearable items there's problems with them. But anyway, I don't want to talk about this anymore because I want to talk about the fun stuff.
Okay.
And the two stuff that you're sort of known for that I think you enjoy. And I don't know how much you know about me, but I'm a huge Pokemon fan. And so I have connections where I got to a while ago interview Veronica Taylor, who was the first Ash Ketchum.
Nice.
Did Lisa Ortiz, maybe I think late last year, early this year. I did her, and she's the voice director for the Pokemon Netflix series.
Oh, that's right. Okay, cool.
And so there's just been a bunch of people who have been on. Dave Mills has been on. Kira Buckland's been on. Brittany Lott has been on. And a variety of other people have been on in Pokemon on both my shows. And so obviously you've done Piers.
Yes, Piers.
And I'm not as familiar with Sword and Shield, but I am collecting the cards. And I'm a big Pokemon card collector. So obviously, though, this is a gym leader from my understanding.
Yes. He is the Dark type gym leader. I believe he's the very first Dark type gym leader in any of the Pokemon games.
He needs a hug, is what you're saying.
Yes. Funny thing about that cosplay, it's a completely like closet cosplay. So I just pulled out, I think it was in my apartment when my roommate was gone for a little bit. So I just went into his closet and got a few things out of it as well. That wig was actually my Ash wig. And I just shot a little photo shoot in my bathroom in Ash. And I was like, I think I can make this into Piers wig. And I had like black hair extensions from my first Ruby cosplay. I did Lyren, and I had hair extensions from his like little ponytail. And I just like clipped these extensions in and styled this wig. And 2 hours later, I was doing a photo shoot for Piers. So that was like a completely like one-off cosplay. So it's very interesting that you bring that one up.
I went through your Instagram.
Yeah.
I know more about you than anybody else.
That's totally fair.
I'm like the ultimate stalker. It's very, very bad.
Yeah.
I do my homework on my guests. What can I say?
Good. I'm
But
glad.
obviously, what is that like? Because obviously, Pokemon's big. It's only getting bigger. Sword and Shield is sort of the last one that just came out,
Mhm.
and people love this stuff, and people really like Pokemon. And obviously, recognizable characters matter in a lot of ways in Pokemon. And so, what was that like when you threw that out on Instagram and sort of just threw it out as in the middle of hell, essentially?
Yeah, I don't really know if that cosplay itself like got a lot of attention. Um, I've seen other like peers cosplayers making he has crazy hair, like white and black, like striped, like spiked hair that goes into like a ponytail, I think. I've seen people make that out of like foam as like a helmet to wear, and then it goes back. That's something I kind of wanted to do, and when playing the game, I kind of really liked his character, so it was a cosplay I was planning on making. I haven't really done a whole lot with that since, other than that one photo shoot. But that was kind of just out of, hey, this is a character I like. I kind of want to just make it real quick.
And then the other one is the Pokemon breeder with Frostmoth.
Yes, yeah.
And I am not an insect guy. I really don't like
I
insects.
love bug type Pokemon.
I hate them. I like my Charmander and my Cyndaquil burning all of them. I do not like the Viridian Forest terrifies me in the game. I really, really, really do not like that. I am not a fan of the bug types. There's that legendary Pokemon in Black and White that I don't like either.
Oh, Genesect.
What?
Genesect?
Is
The
it Genesect
the
or
purple bug type? Is that what you're talking about?
No. It's the Pokemon that are it's like in a desert in the 70th floor of like a tower, like the 40th floor of a tower.
Oh, Volcarona.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can get its larva later.
I love that thing. Oh my god. I love Volcarona. I love my bug and steel type Pokemon. So there's like 6 Pokemon that are exactly bug and steel. All like quad affected by fire, but it's okay because I love them.
I love fire Pokemon, and I also love psychic Pokemon. Like I
Gotcha.
think psychic Pokemon are the most interesting
Mhm.
Pokemon out there, and I love Alakazam. I just love Alakazam.
Nice.
Alakazam seems like an asshole type of Pokemon. It's perfect. It's perfect, and I also love Detox.
Okay. Yeah.
And because Detox can transform depending on
Into
things
the different forms. Yeah.
in certain games, and it's awesome, and it's so helpful. But anyway, so how did this come back? Because this is really cool, because obviously I think the Frostmoth was semi 3D printed, and you had a bunch of little ones that you were giving away as well. And, it's sort of a snow moth, I guess.
Yeah, so Frostmoth and its pre-evolution Snom. Snom, when it came out, it didn't like break the internet, I guess, but it like definitely took out its nice little like chunk of it for a little bit, because it's this cute little ice caterpillar, and it just looks like a friend. I loved Snom. I had Snom and a Frostmoth on my first team in Pokemon Shield. It's a really good Pokemon, and back in 2020, at the very beginning of 2020, right before COVID hit, I modeled and 3D printed out a little Snom like figurine that had my Instagram handle on the bottom of it. I was planning on going to the convention in March here in Colorado and printing out a bunch of them and handing them out, because I'm like, well, business cards don't really work at conventions because people just like throw them away.
Obviously.
Well, I was like, how will I give people a 3D printed like figurine that has my handle on it? People will not throw that thing away. Especially of a Snom that, like, because the game just came out at that point too, people are more interested in. So I'm sad it happened. I did it this late, but I'm really glad I did it. That Frostmoth is not 3D printed at all. It is completely EVA foam, and some like faux fur, and blood and tears, because I made that thing, that entire cosplay. I made that in the week before my last convention, and I think I blacked out that entire week because I do not remember doing it.
You time traveled.
I guess I time traveled, and I guess it turned out good. So, but yeah, I 3D it out. I 3D printed out like 50 of these like little snoms. I wanted to do like 100, but that just like wouldn't have been possible. And I made a little Pokemon breeder egg and a basket to carry around the snoms in, and I just passed them out to the people that wanted to take photos with me or give it to some friends. And I thought it was super fun. Also, having this like big moth on my back walking down the hall was just like this like commanding presence, because everyone's just looking at me just like, oh whoa, look at that. It is something really cool, and I think it's just like a super like simple like cosplay to wear as well.
And obviously it's Pokemon, and Pokemon is getting bigger. I mean, I don't know if you got your Pokemon Oreos yet, but
I don't.
They're dope. They are dope, and it's phenomenal. And apparently people are paying really good money for Muse. And people are asking like for an
Oreo? Oh my god!
I've seen people get like $20 for a Mew cookie.
Jesus,
I'm not even kidding. It's hilarious. It's like the funniest thing in the world to me. And I'm going to Target in a few days and picking up like 15 packages of it. And I'm gonna be saving some of these packages and selling them in 5 years, because I think they're gonna be going for like $200-300.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I'm a speculator. I'm such a speculator. It's horrendous. I'm part of the problem. I know clearly I'm part of the problem. But I digress. I just got a special delivery binned off cart. So don't talk to me anybody about being part of the problem. I know I am. It's gonna be sent off to CGC or Beckett or PSA DNA soon. It's a $200 card right now.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
It's only going to go up in value. The special delivery Charizard and the special delivery Pikachus are going for good money. Mm-hmm. And so that card's going to go for really good money. And everybody thought it was a joke, too, when it came out. Not a joke anymore. Nobody knew it was real. That's what's crazy. But anyway, I digress. So you love Steel Pokemon. We got to talk about Mega Steelix.
Yes. Oh,
and
God.
So this is, I don't know what this is called exactly. Ginjenka or
I've read it as Jajinka. I don't know how to exactly pronounce it.
I didn't know the name fully of what it is. It's very much taking, I guess, human elements and then combining it, sort of taking an anamorphic position but making it more humanistic, but still keeping a bunch of traits, I think is how it's described.
That was definitely like an inspiration to turn it into a Jajinka, because I've seen like a bunch of artwork of people like turning a Pokemon into like, oh, this is what this person, or like a Pokemon would look like as a human. And I thought it was really cool. But with this armor in particular, I actually took more inspiration from Monster Hunter, and thinking about, hey, what if this thing was a giant monster I had to slay and turned it into armor? So that was kind of my thought process in going into it. After seeing the really cool, big and like glowing Monster Hunter like cosplays that I saw like floating around Instagram and kind of taking over that side of the internet for a little bit. And I wanted to get on that action, but I had never played Monster Hunter. So the next best thing was a Pokemon that I really loved. And I decided to design a whole armor set around it.
And so what was that like? Because obviously, Steelix is Steelix. And for those who don't know, it's the evolved form of Onyx that's steeled out. And you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. People don't know Scyther is Scissor.
Oh, no.
It's terrible. It's terrible. People don't know that.
Another one of my favorite bug Pokemon.
So the idea is that, and people also don't know that you have to basically put Metal Claw on it and then trade, and then it evolves. That's the other thing, guys. Breaking news, right? But even still, what was this like building this thing out? Because it's a lot of moving parts, and you have a staff with it, and obviously you have almost like a headgear, and you have a chest piece, and you got sort of a little bit of a tail on it, and there's a lot of stuff and a lot of stuff's going on. I don't know how to describe it because it's complicated.
Yeah. I started designing it in 2019, I believe, after I won the competition with my ancient armor, the one that I remade. So I knew I wanted to go bigger and better, because I was moving up in categories in the cosplay contest. So I wanted to make something much bigger, and I realized that I like working with lights and LEDs. So an armor that was covered like head to toe in crystals like really spoke out to me. And making that into like one of my favorite Pokemon, especially Mega Steelix, which was glowing crystals and floating shards, and just a design that I thought was super cool. So like I just started out with a little sketch when I was like at work one day, and I over the past like 2 years I turned it into the armor that you see now. I finished the design in about like February this year, and then uh, from March till about the end of April was my time of working on it, and I finished it in like a little bit less than 2 months, for an online competition that sadly I didn't get to participate in, because they didn't choose me as a finalist. But
The nerve.
the nerve. But it's totally okay. It was like very stiff competition for them to like get finalists together, because it was a worldwide competition, and they had like 200-300 people submitting things, and they could only like have like 50 finalists. So completely understand.
So what was this for? Was this the world?
This was the ultimate online cosplay competition. It's run by like Talk Custom and a bunch of other like TNT cosplay supplies, like a bunch of like bigger name like cosplayers that like decided like, hey, COVID's happening, we can't do costume contests, let's make an online one. That's actually why I made Ash originally. I entered in their first year that they did it last year, and didn't make it into that one either, but it's okay because I just won the best in the intermediate category at my local convention with Mega Steelix, so it all worked out.
And obviously, it has more of a mecha feel. And there's a lot of stuff going on. And
Yes.
It's a very cool thing. And it's been very well received. Obviously, you just won in the intermediate. And obviously, what does that make you feel? Because obviously, with Link, you won.
Mm-hmm.
And then with this, and obviously, sometimes you don't need an award. But sometimes awards sort of tell you you're going in the right direction. It's a very good feedback loop. Or even placing, or even if you get into the top 10 in a cosplay competition, you're getting closer and you're getting more feedback, because the internet's tricky with feedback. I could get 900 views, but that doesn't tell me anything. But if I get 10 messages from people saying, oh, that was a really good question that you asked, that's more helpful than getting a lot of views, because it's telling me certain things. So what is that like for you, knowing that, okay, I'm on sort of more of a right track here because I just won this award, and you're having more feedback versus just views on Instagram or likes on Instagram?
I definitely love going back to the conventions now, because I'm able to see the feedback in real time of me just wearing the cosplay and walking down the hallway. People asking me for pictures is like the best thing in the world, because I love it when people love the work that I do. It just like feels so good to be like recognized like that. And of course you don't have to like win anything in the cosplay contest to feel like you're going the right direction or anything, but it definitely does like help boost up your like ego a little bit and your confidence, for you to continue. When I made my ancient armor originally and I did not place, or I did not like win anything in it, I was like heartbroken, because I spent so long making it, and I was just really sad about it, but then realized what I did wrong with it and like things I could definitely improve on, and I just kept going. So the love from the internet is always great, but it doesn't always happen. So definitely,
You tell me that.
yeah. So like definitely
years,
getting it in
years.
person, from being at a convention or at a cosplay contest, with judges actually judging your work and able to like actually see it up close and see the detail that you put into it, versus a photo that you posted online that doesn't show everything that you do. It makes you feel like more special, because people are recognizing the hard work that you put into it.
I know exactly how that is. And as somebody who's not a cosplayer and is a podcaster, and obviously does a bunch of panels and a variety of stuff, recognition goes a long way. A thank you goes a long way. and cons don't tell me thank you for even showing up and doing a panel, not getting paid. It hurts. It hurts. I feel it. So I know exactly what it's like, in that realm. So I completely get it. And but that's awesome. And then obviously we're going to be talking about one more cosplay. I'm going to skip, Ezreal because I want to talk about Evelyn.
Okay. Everyone skips Ezreal. It's okay.
Unless you want to talk about Ezreal.
No.
Cool.
No. Ezreal was fun. Evelyn was a lot more fun though.
So what's the story behind Evelyn? Because obviously now we're talking about League of Legends.
Yes.
For the Facebook group that I'm going to post this into before you kick me out of that group. This is definitely League of Legends oriented. I have 1 hour 15 minutes and we're finally talking about League of Legends. So we qualify. I'm just letting the Facebook group know that I'm going to put them right to this point at 1 hour and 15 in. But anyway, what's the story behind Evelyn?
Evelyn. Oh, geez. When they came out with League of Legends came out with the first KDA video, loved it. It was amazing, show-stopping, internet breaking. I wanted to cosplay the original KDA Evelyn, but I was like, I'll do it like gender bent as like a guy.
So you're not going to DJ Croft it.
Yeah.
You know who DJ is, right?
Yeah.
I love DJ. Like 3 hours twice.
So when I was originally thinking about making the original KDA Evelyn, I was trying to go through my mind and like gender bending it, and I realized like I don't really think I could do this justice in the way that I would want to and like keep it the same character. So I just held off on doing it. When the More music video came out for KDA about like a year ago now, instantly fell in love with it. I still listen to the music like today. The designs for them, breathtaking. That's what got me into playing League of Legends. I played every now and again because a friend of mine wanted me to play in high school. I was like, no, League of Legends is lame. But now I'm a League nerd and I play like every day now because KDA got me into League of Legends and I became an Evelyn main, and jungle was my very first thing I ever did in League because I wanted to be Evelyn. And like the first skin I bought was the KDA all out Evelyn skin. And I knew after that like video came out that I just had to like cosplayer, and I was like, you know what? Why not? I'll just do it in like drag. I'll just go full out. I'm not going to try to gender bend it or anything. Like,
so let's talk about that because obviously we see gender bends happen all the time.
mm-hmm.
There's an art to it, and we typically see the idea that you go when you're either male, female. I know I'm going to get slightly politically incorrect here, but I think everybody's going to deal with it for 5 seconds, and then you go conform to what that character is in that anime or that video game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I mentioned DJ Croft because DJ Croft takes the other side of it. Mm-hmm. Where he goes completely and says, I'm going to go make Lara Croft, the male version of Lara Croft, or I'm going to do the male version of Jill Valentine, which is a whole different version of what is the traditional gender bending cosplay. You went more, I guess, traditional going in drag with Evelyn. And what was that like? Because obviously doing a male version of Evelyn, I don't know if it's been done. And I think it's very complicated to do it. And I think that it's a big risk to do, I think. And the reason why I bring this up is that DJ, when he did, male Jill Valentine, that's a big risk. When he did male Lara Croft, that's a big risk because if that thing bombs, that thing is going to bomb hard. There's no recovery in a cosplay doing that type of cosplay. You either nail it or you don't. So I'm curious, like, what was going through your head and saying, I'm going to do this because it's an art to, I guess, maleify a female character, for lack of a better word.
I don't think I've seen a whole lot of people cosplaying KDA all out Evelyn in this outfit.
We're going to talk about that too.
Well, I mean, at least in like the gender bending of like making it into a more male masculine cosplay. I've seen like artwork of it and it does look really good. I just really wanted to keep to like her original design, and it's something I've never tried before. I was always more of like, if I'm going to cosplay a female character, I'm going to gender bend them because that's what I'm comfortable with. After doing this now, it's like, well, I'm comfortable doing like any character now, and there's so many female characters that I love that I'm realizing like, oh, I can cosplay them without having to change them at all. That feels great. Um, and I think Evelyn's design is very more rooted in like the female like form, and she's supposed to be like a succubus and like a demon. So
It's very hard to make that character a male.
yeah.
First thing, a character, and I'm going to just use Jill Valentine. Jill Valentine is more easily transformable. There's a variety of other characters in anime and video games that can obviously go just based on, what they can, certain traits, right? I'll give a good example. Wonder Woman is easier to make it into a masculine character because Wonder Woman has a lot of masculine traits. Evelyn is very, very feminine in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I don't really know if like I feel like I could make Evelyn, especially in like the KDA skin, into more like
challenge issue
into like more of like a masculine like thing. I'm just not very masculine myself, so I don't know how well that would
I think
translate.
that's quite masculine.
More of the sense of at least how League of Legends characters are modeled. Like all the guys are just like full 6-pack ripped, like abs and everything.
Break the norm here. This is an opportunity for you.
At least like in her outfit of how she was designed, I don't really know how to translate that into more of a male fashion, because the KDA girls fashion is very like K-pop and like street fashion, where if you do the same thing on a guy, it's not going to look the same.
You're going to be changing the entire culture of Japan. It's an opportunity for you.
Yeah.
The change you want to see.
Definitely.
All jokes aside, though, obviously, we're joking around here for a good reason. But there's a lot of cool stuff that was done in this, and obviously building her claws. Obviously, the rhinestone stuff was in there, and going all out in that realm. Obviously, building her top and the jackets and the boots, and figuring out, I guess, her assets, for lack of a better word. And that new experience. I'm not too sure if it was heel, obviously boots / heels, skirt / hot pants. I'm not too sure which one it was. And then also talk about the wig is always fun, and her jacket too. Very cool. A lot of cool stuff going on in this. And then I think what was really cool is the lashers is what really sold this. And obviously I'm looking up really cool individuals. And obviously, as I stated at the beginning of this interview, you fit a bunch of criteria, and I'm going through and I'm like, oh man, this looks awesome. And I'm not a big League fan per se, but I mean, that image stood out to me. And I'm like, oh snap, this is something that is really interesting. And then it's obviously 3D printed. And so what was that like, building that and even figuring out the parameters on that? Because it is a very nice touch on her as a character.
Well, thank you. There's not a lot on that cosplay that's 3D printed, actually. Interestingly enough, the main thing that is 3D printed are the claws. Those are resin 3D printed, so not using a normal 3D printer that builds up with plastic. It actually dunks a plate into a vat of resin and cures it with a UV light, and then pulls it up and down until it's completely a solid piece. So those claws are like completely like movable with like my fingers, and are like a full sturdy like resin print, which then got like painted and with like the rhinestones on them as well. And they are like fully articulated, which is really nice, and they feel like really nice on my fingers. The lashers are definitely like one of my favorite pieces of the cosplay itself. There was a tutorial put out by Kinpatsu Cosplay, who was commissioned by Riot to put out a tutorial for each of the KDA girls for the all-out skins, and the tutorial she put out for Evelyn was her lashers. So I used her base tutorial to make these lashers, which it was just wires and a little harness, and the wires came out into this big like lasher shape that you could have them like floating behind you and still in a pose, which then just got covered with EVA foam and some fabric. And I originally bought this like scaled fabric that I wanted to use on it, which I ended up just using for the lining of the jacket that I sewed. But instead, I wanted to put on like physical scales themselves, because in the more music video and also in her splash art in Wild Rift, the mobile league game, the model has like a lot more detail on it, and it has actual physical scales. So I laser cut out a bunch of scale like patterns and individually laid all of them down and airbrushed them all to like have this nice like blue to pink, more metallic shiny gradient. And the like claws on the end, like the silver parts, those were also part of the tutorial that Kinpatsu Cosplay made. The top and the jacket and the skirt, that stuff was all like sewn by me. I borrowed the breastplate from one of my friends that I'm actually doing a commission for right now. Behind me there, it's actually on the mannequin for the commission I'm making for him right now. I'm making him a Coven Ari skin cosplay from League, one of the newer skins. And I was able to just make like a bra to go over that, and the jacket is like one of the cleanest sewing jobs I've ever done. Like it's completely like there's no seams on it. It looks super clean. And the skirt was also sewn around me wearing hip pads. So I had to put on several pairs of like nude leggings and tights just to like stuff in this like upholstery foam that I had to carve down into shape, that when it's on me and when it's compressed by these tights, it gives it like a smoother form. So it gives me those, as you said, assets. And then from there on, I had to make the appropriate like leggings and like the tights that go up to like my knees, and the skirt that goes over that as well, along with the high heels, which finding heels in my shoe size isn't the easiest, but I was able to find some, and I had to like spray paint them silver and add a little strap and pom-pom onto it. A lot went into this cosplay, and it's definitely like one of my higher detail cosplays, where I had friends saying that, why didn't you compete in that for the cosplay contest? Which my reply is, but Steelix is bigger and it lights up. Versus Evelyn, which was not as much like to look at versus the big armor. And then that wig for Evelyn, I had no idea what I was doing. So I had a friend help me style the wig and style these like buns on top. And I learned some like good like wig styling tricks from it as well. So that really helped. And I had to learn how to do like makeup to try to like do it in a nice way. I have had like a lot of like drag culture in my life. I used to work at a nightclub, and there's obviously like a lot of like drag performers here in Colorado and in Denver. So being around them, and then also like watching tutorials and shows and stuff like that, looking at Evelyn's makeup, realizing, wow, this is kind of like pretty exaggerated. So why don't I try it in a drag-esque, like exaggerated makeup? First time I did that, I looked absolutely crazy. So then, because my eyebrows were like up here and my eyelids were like here, so I decided to dial it back a little bit, and just try to do like normal makeup for like my features, and it worked out a lot better, and it turned out pretty well. So,
and obviously there's a lot going on in this,
yeah.
and typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think a lot of guys are doing Evelyn.
No, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of guys do Evelyn. And I think when I said it earlier, in the sense of doing it in the like a gender bent of, I haven't seen a lot of like
Well, I'm saying it in general.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I'm not even going down your path yet. That's a secondary question. And so what was the response? Because I highly doubt, and I haven't seen another guy, and I did a quick Instagram search, and I haven't seen any. And maybe I didn't dive deep enough, but it's the idea that this is definitely not, sort of copied the same way that every Harley Quinn is copied. You go to a con and there's literally, if you go to 30,000 person con, there's at least 150 Harley Quinns. I would be very shocked to see another gender bended Evelyn like you did at a convention. I'd be very shocked. And then, especially at a regular anime con, if that makes any sense. And so, what was that like? What was the response? Because you look at it and it looked passable.
I mean, when I was making it originally and I was like posting updates on it, I lost followers. So that was like disheartening, but it's also like, okay, well, I didn't want you here anyways if you're gonna judge me like this, or and make it more like political, I guess, where it's just something to do for fun. I'm dressing up in a costume. I don't care. I actually wore Evelyn to that convention I went to. That is the family friendly one, where they say more than 60% of your torso has to be covered. I didn't realize until the day before I remembered that rule as like I was about to like pack up all my Evelyn stuff to go to the convention. I was like, oh, okay, am I able to wear this? Because technically my torso is completely covered. It's just by another torso. So because I had a breastplate on, and then also the skirt went up like completely to like my belly button. So no one commented on it like as like hey, you can't wear that. So that was nice, and I got a lot of attention like walking down the halls or hobbling down the halls because I'm not great with walking in the heels. And also the convention floor like changed different, like from tile to carpet to like hardwood, and, like constantly. So that was not fun to walk in. But like I didn't have any like backlash at the convention itself, which was great. I think at that convention I saw one other KDA All Out Evelyn. But when I see like a lot of like women cosplaying Evelyn, they're just using the things that they already have. They're using their like natural body shapes, and they're just like covering a bra that they own with like leather. For me, I wanted to have, which is something like I totally could have done that as well. I could have just gotten a normal bra, like shaved my chest and been like, yeah, these are like, this is Evelyn. And then just put like a normal skirt on. But I wanted to go the route of drag and accentuating the parts of her body, because Evelyn is a twig with a big asset and a lot of curves. So I wanted to do the character justice. I didn't want like what I did with wanted to do with normal KDA Evelyn. I wanted to gender bend it. With this, I did the complete opposite, and I became the character instead of making the character something like me. So that was something I'm just proud of.
It's a very, very interesting cosplay.
Thank you.
And also it's something that is definitely out of the norm. And it also pushes the lines of cosplay in a lot of ways. And right now in my life, I'm actually sort of at that stage where I'm like, how far can I push the line? Where I'm big into comics, I'm big into reading, and I'm big into animes right now, and I'm going on an anime kick. And the whole point of what I'm watching now is how far can we push the line? What is the idea where it's new ideas? Where can we go and explore new things? I'm a big fan of wrestling, and the things that I'm interested in is new ideas that push the line of characters and other things. And I think this is sort of a frontier that pushes that line a little bit. And I think it's very important, because after a while, if you're not pushing the line, you're just maintaining status quo, or you're giving up status quo. And there's a real shift in what I want to do, where I'm going with everything in my personal life. So I think this is something in that realm. And I think, and feel free to disagree with me, but I think you're getting to that stage as a cosplayer saying, how far can I push it?
Hmm.
What is the next growth? Because I want to go through growth right now personally. I think that that's something that's sort of happening. Just listening. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think this year alone, I've done things that I've never done in cosplay before. Evelyn is like the big one that stands out because I am now more comfortable with, oh, I can cosplay a female character as the female character and not having to convert it into a gender bent or a male version of that character just for me to feel comfortable in it. Um, there are of course things that like I'll probably gender bend because I don't like, I don't know. There's like certain characters that I'm thinking about cosplaying where I'm like, I feel like it would just look better on me as a gender bent because I would like that as normal clothes anyways.
And also, there's some characters that just you say, look, I just want to do it as a guy.
Yeah.
Because it'll just be more fun to do it.
Yeah. Like I did my first like gender bend character I did before Ash, I did Asuka from Evangelion. I did her design.
That one.
I love Evangelion.
Grant's been on.
I did her 3.33 movie with the hat and the jacket and everything, and just like a bodysuit. And everything, all that was different about it is I just didn't have long hair. So when you can gender bend a character like that, that's very simple to do. But I've also just like pushed myself more this year with more like out of the box cosplays because I've stopped cosplaying a lot of anime and kind of more moved a lot more into video games and the things that I specifically want to do and not necessarily as popular. Because as like this year going to conventions, I've been to about like 4 conventions this year so far for traveling for work and for personal stuff. Everything people are cosplaying is like Demon Slayer, or I still see a lot of Attack on Titan. So being able to stand out like that is very nice with like my Mega Steelix because if you see me coming down the halls, you can't miss me. But then also with like my Frostmoth and like my Pokemon breeder, that's like something else that like I wouldn't have thought of years ago to like try something like that. And it was like a challenge for me to make. And I'm so glad I did it because I'm realizing I could do so much more with cosplay than just throw on some clothes and a wig and call myself a character. I can make so much more than that.
And so to even go further, because you mentioned something interesting where you're now doing things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I'm writing, on my website articles that I want to write. And I'm choosing a lot of my show is choice.
Mm-hmm.
Most of last year was choice. This year is choice. A lot of people don't get to tell me what to do. My sponsor doesn't have creative control. I mean, they have some creative control, but beyond, I guess, normal, whatever we're going to call that. But I choose who I want to interview for the most part. And it's very interesting. And that's why I'm doing people who are like you, for instance, where I chose you. You didn't ask me.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, everybody this week was chosen. Nobody this week was asked or asked to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting because there's a lot of control. And while somebody might not be popular, it changes the way you do things. And so I'm super curious on that note. Is that where do you think cosplay is going? Because there's been a lot of changes that have happened, from a marketing standpoint. Hot Topic has had a change in how they do business. I'm sure you're aware that in all of June, there was a bunch of people who had paid partnerships who had less than 9,000 Instagram followers. And it's because they had big engagements. There are people that have 120,000, followers on TikTok. And that, they're killing it. Todd Wade is a good example of this, where he doesn't have a lot of Instagram and people who are, I guess, quote unquote, the norm and the old guard, not saying they're bad, and not saying they don't have influence still, but they're not getting those calls as much as they used to. Mm-hmm. And there's been a real change in the guard on cosplay and engagement. I mean, I just got a sponsorship 6 weeks ago.
Nice.
It's a big change in how business is being done. And it's also because of engagement and viewership and all that stuff. And I'm going to throw out a name. If Jessica Nigeria does a Facebook Live, legitimately 100,000 people watch it. If I get 600 people watching this, that's great. But I have a much higher percentage engagement than she does.
Mm-hmm.
and I have fans that are engaging and liking and actually are interested in all this stuff and actually watch it, and my Facebook engagement is high. And so I'm curious how you think all this is going, because there's been a massive shift in the last almost 2 years, I would say.
Yeah. I don't really know where it's going, to be honest. I'm like here trying to figure out how it worked and then trying to figure out how it's currently
It's just because
working.
it's changed. I mean, I
Because
think
it, yeah.
that's the assumption that it's all changed. And I have a theory, but I don't want to publicize my theory live, I promise. But some people know it. And it's very interesting because I'm just looking at it and I'm a spectator. I'm not a participant. I am a participant in the indie comic world and, podcasting, and that's changed dramatically. And I'm just super curious where you think it's all going. If you have an opinion or you're just confused like everybody else is.
I mean, I think I'm just confused like everyone else is. I think for someone to like make it, I guess, or like being able to make this a hobby into more of a career and a business, you need to be spread out along every like social media platform and constantly active on all of them, so you can hit every corner of the internet. But with platforms changing, like Instagram changes constantly and it's obnoxious, because as soon as you feel like you're going somewhere, they knock you down a few pegs and say, you can't do it like that anymore. You know why? No, we don't know either. Just because of how they're having people like pay for ads and pay for boosts on posts and stuff like that. But to have more of like an engagement in this, like, and to make this all into like a bigger like career, I feel like it's a lot more difficult now than it used to be. Like I was around when YouTube like just started and I was like really into it. I wish when it just started, I made a channel. I wish I like started posting things, because I would probably be a lot further along in the stuff I want to do now,
I can tell you.
Versus if I start it right now when things are completely like flipped 180 and thrown across the field. Because
so it's super interesting because I was very big on YouTube to some degree. I was doing content all the time and I was miserable. Miserable because it was like, gotta make the next anime video, gotta comment on this, gotta do like 10 videos a week, and great, you're getting monetized and you get demonetized, and it was bad. I am more happy that I'm off of this stuff and that there are better ways to make money than on YouTube. And I understand the publicity of it all, but the days of making money on YouTube are far and few between. It is hard.
Yeah.
And I have videos that I've done like 200,000, and even the money on 200,000 video is like $20. It is brutal, and I was miserable, and it didn't accomplish anything. And I was getting videos that were doing like 5,000 views here, 5,000 views there, 4,000 views here. I have video anime OBAs definitions, and it's a horrific video. Gets like, I think almost like 700 to 800 views like a month, and with me doing nothing. It's not even advertised or anything like that. It's just that it works, and it just it continuously goes forward.
Yeah.
Can't speak today. But
I gotcha.
I'm so happy that I'm doing this, because this is not misery. And all the other stuff is. And so it's super complicated. But I agree that social media is a fucking nightmare right now.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Whenever I get into the groove of posting and getting good engagement and everything, it just suddenly goes away for no reason. Like I just went the full weekend without posting anything and like even being active on social media, and suddenly it's all back. So it's a very weird algorithm stuff that's happening. As soon as like I feel like, oh, this post is going to do really well, and that's also like the disheartening part when I like make something that I'm super proud of and I want to show people. If it's not like, if the stars are not aligned, then it will not do well, and that's the really sad part of it. So
it's so complicated. I force social media to behave.
Mm-hmm.
And I also understand there's a lot of other stuff going on with it. And yeah, I stated this before. The things that are going to determine the future of entertainment is on demand,
Mm-hmm.
or when you want to watch something, big libraries, and customization.
Mm-hmm.
Those three things are going to determine the future of entertainment. And you look at places like Peacock, AT&T, HBO Max. You look at things like Crunchyroll, Netflix. Obviously Disney Plus. Hulu. All that stuff is on demand and big libraries. Apple is building their library. Sony's building their library. It's clear where entertainment is going, and those things are going to dictate what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very exciting, but it's so interesting. And so obviously, I would ask you how cons are going, but that's a whole complicated bag, and I have a feeling it's very similar because I'm sitting it out for a while till everything cools down and obviously I'm still burned from something that happened almost a year and a half ago. Yeah. And I'm licking my wounds. And I stated this before off air, but the way I feel is that I'm beyond more influential. This is the most amount of press I've ever gotten in the last 18 months by me doing live streams and doing a lot of them, doing interviews. I've gotten more press, I've gotten more friends, and I've gotten more, and I'm actually have a sponsor, and I'm doing live reads, and there's a lot of other stuff coming down the pike. And I never made money at cons before, and now I'm actually making money.
Good.
So personally,
that's awesome. Yeah.
I'm not making a lot, guys. It pays for this. Season 3 is happening because of my sponsor. But it's the idea that if I've never made money at a con, and now I am, I'm going to be going where the money is, which I think is logical. Cosplay is not cheap. Running a podcast isn't cheap. And anything that can help alleviate the bill is always helpful. So
that's why I like competing, because cash prizes. So
I would love
it. Pays for like a fifth of the cosplay itself, but
but it helps tremendously.
It helps, yes.
And anything that reduces your expenditure is beyond helpful. And also the exposure, and that's what matters. And I wish cons would pay people who are presenting and cosplayers who are competing, and a variety of other people should be taken care of at cons. They should, and it's unfortunate because it's a broken business model, and it's a controversial topic, and there's a bunch of people who agree and disagree with me, and I understand both sides of it. And this is not a debate show, so we're not going to dive into it. But anyhow, I do want to give you an opportunity to self-promote yourself. So where can people find you? Where can people follow you on Instagram? Where can people support you? If you don't have Buy Me a Coffee or a Patreon yet, that's your next project. Yeah. Because that stuff is helpful. And I could tell you, because Buy Me a Coffee is like the greatest thing you can do.
Yes. I do have a coffee. It's at Arkluden. Same with all my other social media, which Instagram is the main one I'm on. I update like my stories like almost every day with the new projects I'm doing. My posts are a little few and far between, but I get it there sometimes. I'm trying to make more like YouTube stuff work. I have filmed the entire process of my past few cosplays of my Mega Steelix and my Evelyn and my Frostmoth Pokemon breeder, so I can put it out as a video. Same with like TikTok and stuff like that. It's all at Arkluden. Give me a follow there. That would be amazing. Being recognized is great. It's a great feeling to have the recognition for the work that you do. So if you ever see someone like feel like they're begging for it, they are, because they want it.
Thank you goes a long way. It goes a long way.
It goes a long way.
A good job goes a long way. I really enjoyed that. Goes a long way.
Yes.
And you know what it is? Believe me, and I'm sure you've had bad days, and somebody just says, "Yo, I really like this thing," or "Hey, this is an awesome cosplay," or "Awesome job on it," and it helps tremendously. Yep. And it might seem stupid, it might seem foolish, but it definitely helps. It's so important on that front. So obviously, and I've been saying this, is you got to support indie content creators. Cosplay is expensive. I know I'm a content creator. You're a content creator. in a lot of ways. And this stuff isn't cheap. It requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of time. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into a lot of this stuff. And so you have to support. And one of the things is that I'm glad you have Buy Me a Coffee, because obviously that's one way how to support. And no amount is too small. Because if, you know, the 300 people see this, and 300 to 500 people are going to see this, and every one of those people put $5 in, you know, that would fund at least 2 cosplays, I think.
You know,
You'll make
depends on how many lights I put in it, because lights are expensive.
You get where I'm going. Where
but yes, definitely. Seriously,
stuff.
Anything helps. Like, it's great.
And so, but even going further off of that, obviously following on social media, because money's great, but I get it. Money's tight with a lot of people. I'm with everybody on that, where money is extremely tight, because it's going right back into this. I have a sponsor, but they don't cover everything, and life's expensive. You know, there's a reason why you need a helmet in life, because it's hard. But following on social media is one of the most important things that people can do. And obviously Instagram, you know, I think you have a Facebook page.
I do, yes.
It's been neglected heavily.
Yes, thanks for calling me out. There's
a million other things I could have called you out on. If this is the least I call you out on.
Fine. Yeah, it hasn't been updated that well. I do have it connected to my Instagram, so it does post from it automatically. Instagram's having issues where it just doesn't want to connect for some posts. So there's a few things missing. I want to go back and like revamp it, because I've kind of not rebranded, but I've kind of figured out who I am now versus when I made it. So definitely updating stuff.
So obviously, though, following on there is going to be helpful as well, just because page likes matter. And obviously, as I was stating, you know, go buy him coffee. You know, it goes a long way. And at this stage in the game, everybody, it's not enough anymore if you have extra funds to just like somebody's post on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, or follow somebody on Twitch. It's, you got to put your mouth where your money is. You know, obviously it's so important to do that, and you need to do something to help people out. And that matters. And obviously I buy me a coffee too. So if you're going to go buy him a coffee, you should buy me one too, guys. It matters. At this point, you should be doing both, because content is expensive. And if you like what you see, you have to support it, because we are not the big companies out there, and every dollar helps. And so on that note, support indie content creators. And if you would like, you could send me your credit card info, or send him your credit card info, and we'll take what we need. Because, you know, I need a bunch of stuff. I need a bunch of ring lights, guys. I'm just saying on that front. So obviously, and on that note, though, in all seriousness, I'm going to give you the final word.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Yeah, word.
I think that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Cool.